And welcome back to episode 3 of What on Earth. Today we have a very, very special guest, as you can see. We have the co host herself, the hostess with the mostest. We have Emily here to break down one of the craziest cycles we've seen in cosmic history. 16 different people, and you're our lucky guest to break that all down with us. How are you doing today?
Boy, I'm overwhelmed, but excited to be here. Thank you guys for having me. And even as someone who literally watched that whole vote go down, um, there's still a lot of question marks, but I'm gonna do my absolute best to try to recap that.
Yeah, and I think where to start with this cycle. I think the big thing to start with is just the twist in general. Like
Mm.
16 people coming together for a one world cycle just out of nowhere.
Hmm.
Crazy
Yeah.
idea. I don't think we've done this or you've done this in Cosmic to this point, have you? Or nothing to this scale at
So
least.
Neptune started with a one world. Neptune started with a one world where everyone met all on day zero. We had like a comp to decide who would be the captains, and it was three women. It was Han, Olivia, and Katie, and they all picked their tribes. So that was cool. But that was yeah, the only time we've ever done any kind of one world was that, and that was at the beginning of the season. And so the thought process here, it was kind of like me and Troy both combining two ideas. I had thought of the idea of doing a temporary one world like halfway through pre-merge for a few reasons. One being that I feel like pre-merges tend to drag and be like sad. And
What? Not this
yeah,
season.
yeah. And so I wanted to give them like something that would like change things up a bit, but also I think one of the sadder things about being voted out pre-merge in an All-Stars is that like there's certain people that you're really excited to play with that you never get to meet up with. Like we all know that people coming into All-Stars are going to have a lot of friends in the cast, like that's just a fact. And there's certain people that like really wanted to meet up and never got the chance. And so having this opportunity, like sorry to the first four people, but at least this would give a few more of people who would eventually be pre-mergers have that chance to play with everyone, if that makes sense. And then Troy was like, let's make it a double vote. And so it became this whole this whole kind of crazy idea, which, it was a lot. But I don't regret doing it because I think that it really will have an impact on the season.
Yeah, I think I it might I'm sure a few people mentioned it, but someone specifically I remember I think it was Ryan said something about Red and Shadow like getting to play together if something did go wrong.
Yeah.
And so I think that
Yeah.
is probably I guess my favorite element of just like people can get the chance to play together if they would have been like especially if you stuck in heroes and villains for the whole pre-merge, which is a very
Yeah.
viable theory that a lot of people had. Um,
And same goes for Ryan and Keaton, which
yeah,
turns out like those two have been best friends for like 5 years.
yeah.
They started on Twitter orgs together, and they have somehow never played together. Like they were on a cast together once, and one of them went out pre-merge, and they never met in the game. And so after 5 years of them being best friends, this was the first time that they ever got to play around together. And as we saw, Keaton got voted out, but at least they still had that round.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, more on Keaton later because Keaton deserved better.
Poor guy. I
Yeah.
yeah, I said this to you guys right before we started this, but when I did see Keaton had gone home, I was so confused because I left when he wasn't even really on the table. I left when the last thing I remembered was Keaton or you were like, "Guys, it's happening. Keaton just added me to a group VC." I'm like, "Oh, that should
Mhm.
be interesting." And then I had to get off Discord and I came back and he's gone. I'm like, What?" Like, no. But
Yeah. Him leaking the vote to Han and Ryan and them like that is what made it turn on him.
yeah,
Um which if he hadn't like it would have stayed Han and Red. Um but he said that he didn't regret that because he's always loyal to his allies and I respect that a lot.
and also, I mean, if it's Han and Red there, like, it's not like he's in a great spot. So I totally
Yeah.
get. at least trying something to put him in a better spot.
Yeah. But um 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 I had a thought, I lost it. Never mind.
Yeah, so let's kind of get into more the nitty-gritty of the tribal itself. So it kind of started out a little bit crazy. I mean, it's one world, so you don't really know which way it's going to go because these tribes are kind of mingling for the first time. And it seems like it was kind of fluid at first, and then it kind of developed into that 10 majority and the 6 minority.
Hmm.
And from there, it kind of just went to just which one of the minority members was going to go at that point. Um, so, like, how did those groups, I guess, come together is the big question because I, truth be told, I missed quite a bit of this cycle. I was on a little trip and wasn't able to be on my phone all the time. So, if you have any information on how the tribe,
I
if the how this tribe came together, that'd be awesome.
I do. Okay. So here's kind of the gist, and I apologize if this is rambly because there's a lot of things to put together.
Go for it.
No, no worries.
I will definitely say that at the crux of this is May and Edim.
Of course.
May and Edim are power couple, are Boston Rob and Amber, but better. Um, they basically, from my understanding, they kind of met up. Obviously, were immediately like, "Hey, we're married, we're in love, we want to play," and I do not fault them for that.
Mm-mm.
Um, and they kind of said, "Here's my people, here's your people, let's combine them." So May had like her closest allies, and Edim had his closest allies, and they had a mutual understanding that anyone that was close to one of them would then be protected by the other. Like, case in point, Jenny. Edim and Jenny are extremely close. I think Jenny considers Edim her number one. I'm not positive if Edim considers Jenny his number one, but I know that they're like super, super close. May had no connection to Jenny, and in fact, she said in her pregame connection that she was wary of Jenny because of Jenny voting Edim out in Pluto. So, like, if anything, May had a slightly negative perception of Jenny coming in. But Edim said to May, "Jenny's important to me," and May said, "Okay, I'll protect her too." So they each just combined forces. They were both already power players on each of their tribe. They had like groups of people that they trusted the most, and they just combined forces, and it became two majorities forming a super majority. And then on the other hand, we had Red and Keaton, who were the two left out of the Alice vote on the nobles. And Red and Keaton were both extremely upset about this. They didn't want Alice to go. They were left out. And they, even before the One World, we saw them reach out to people on the Ravagers using one of the safari spots, the gondolas, where you could open a chat with someone from another tribe. So Red opened a chat with Shadow from the other side, and Keaton opened a chat with Han from the other side. So they both reached out to a friend that they knew on the other side, explained the whole story. So that immediately formed a connection right there. So you have this four, you have the two bottom nobles who ran to two Ravagers on the other side. And then those two Ravagers, Han and Shadow, were close with Ryan and Nathan. So that immediately formed a six right there. And it just so happened, like almost by pure convenience, that that six right there were the people who weren't May and Adim's people. Like, it was almost kind of scary how that works out because, I mean, some of them did have connections. Like, I think that Shadow, for instance, has more connections than just that group of six that he wound up in for sure. But it just like the lines became like really clear really early. And people are saying that we had power hour and everything, but like the lines were actually drawn pretty early on. And you could see that those groups were forming even if it wasn't official. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think in regards to this specific tribal, the only like I guess real power hour was the leak of because it was Han and Red, I think, up until the last hour where it went crazy. But I
Hmm.
think yeah, I think the term power hour gets overused because to me power hour is it's an hour before the vote and no one has said anything.
Yeah.
Like that's what I remember from power hour. I'm like I'm
Yeah.
about to go to work. There's 15 minutes until deadline and I haven't heard a name. And I'm not the only one. Because usually if it's like that, that means you're going home if you haven't heard a name within 15 minutes. But I mean, if nobody has, then it's power hour.
Yeah. That was definitely the original intent, but it also
It's more fun.
it's
To
it's
just say
now being
power hour.
used it's now being used to determine the pure chaos of the last
Yeah.
hour where things are still in flux down to the last minute. But yeah, but you're right that people keep saying like in Spec Lounge or even in the game that like, oh, things weren't decided until the last minute, but like no, they were talking
They were
about this.
Hands seem to be going home like the second it was one world. Like I don't
Yeah.
remember a time where it was ever like not Han.
Yeah, May and Ariel had this idea pretty early on, and they started to kind of like spread the seeds, and then other people were agreeing with them, and it like that snowballed way before, like the whole day before at least. Red's name wasn't determined until the day of, but that was still like hours before.
Right.
Um, and I have more thoughts on how it switched to Keaton, if you
Okay,
want to
yeah,
hear that.
for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually, no, I feel like I should back up and tell you the downfall, which I just learned this like 15 or 20 minutes ago when I read Jenny's confessional.
Okay. The
Okay.
So
downfall
Jenny,
of
the downfall of the bottom group, so
right.
like Ryan and Han and their group. Um, I would say it's Ryan, Han, Shadow, and Nathan. So the bottom four Ravagers, although I still feel weird putting Shadow in that group.
And red, right?
Well, Red was a noble, but Red and
Oh,
Keaton
so
were
okay,
nobles.
yeah,
But I'm
sorry.
saying the bottom four Ravagers, their downfall was that they tried to target two nobles, and there was not a single noble that was going to be okay with that plan.
Yeah.
And that was their downfall. And I didn't realize it until I just read Jenny's confessional, where she spells everything out very clearly, almost too detailed. Love her, but she writes novels. Um, but they were trying to target Adrian and Niles, I believe. And there were people who were like, okay, I would vote out one of those or either of them, but not
Yeah.
both. And so as soon as they were approaching it from like, hey, we want to work with you guys, but we want to vote out two nobles. You good with that? Yeah. Everyone was like, no, we're not good with that. We want it to be even. And that's the only way that there could be a cross tribal alliance is if it was an even, we give one, you give one.
Yeah. I didn't even
And
think
I
about
think
that, but that's true.
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting because it's that group that we had talked about the last episode that we didn't think they were going to stick together after the Alice boot, but
Mm-hmm.
people were trying to go for two nobles, so it kind of united their cause again against one person. Because they talked before about how they didn't necessarily trust each other that much, even if they were voting together at the Alice boot, and they didn't even really like working together. But I mean, sometimes you're just forced to work with who you have to work with to get yourself further in the game.
I
Exactly. If
think
you have a mutual interest, yeah.
I think if there wasn't a one world and like let's say nobles just go back to a normal tribal, there's no shot that alliance worked together. But because it was one world and like Emily just said, there's the I guess united front of hey, they're trying to get out two nobles. Like it kind of it like you said, it gave them a reason to actually stick together rather than break apart as soon as they can kind of thing. But
Mm-hmm.
the only two nobles left out of it were Red and Keaton, right?
Yes. Although
So
what
the
I
other
also
six were still yeah, okay.
yeah, what I also found out from Jenny's con was that Jenny was filling in Red all day. Red knew that Han was the vote. I didn't realize that.
Oh,
Red knew that I keep switching the way I say it. Han.
I know.
Red knew
I
that Han was the vote and didn't tell, which I didn't realize that.
But did he know he
Um,
was the vote?
Sneaky.
Jenny, I think she did fill him in on that eventually, and she was like, I'll keep you posted if it changes. But, like, so Jenny was trying very, very hard to keep Red's name off the table. And I do think that that's a factor in why it finally switched to Keaton at the last minute. There was a bit of a disagreement between Edim and Jenny, who are really good allies, and they both wanted to protect the other one's person, but like Edim felt really strongly about not getting rid of Keaton. Jenny felt really strongly about not getting rid of Red, and they were both trying to respect that. But then once
It
Keaton
has to
leaked,
be
then
one of them, yeah.
like, yeah. But Jenny, I think, put in a lot of work, and it was Jenny and Milo, who we haven't been talking about enough, by the way. Milo deserves more credit for all of the things, but more on that later. Jenny and Milo were trying really hard to make it not Red. And then Ariel also really liked Red too, even though she just met him. So the three of them were all kind of like subtly trying to get it off of Red. And then I think when Keaton leaked, that kind of provided an opportunity to be like, hey, don't do Red, do Keaton. And I think that's part of why that switched.
Yeah. And people seemed pretty upset about at Edim about his leak to Keaton. Like we saw even from May, we saw her showing a lot of frustration towards uh, him kind of like, to use a word, I'd say it was a tad bit sloppy last time, honestly, which is not something I necessarily expect from him, but it
Yeah.
was. I don't know if it's going to have any long-term impact, but there was more than one person saying that they didn't like how that shook down at the end of the cycle.
Yeah. I feel like Edim has the social capital to like repair that that damage. But I read his confessional. I haven't read a whole lot because I was at work all day. But I did
Mhm.
happen to read his this morning, and he said that it was partly due to the Alice vote. He felt so guilty still for not telling Keaton about the Alice vote that like that guilt was eating at him, and he felt like he had to tell him this time,
He
which
couldn't do it
obviously
twice in a row kind of thing.
yeah.
Makes sense.
And it was like I feel like Keaton was probably sorry, Edim was overestimating the amount of trust that Keaton still had in him, which was very little.
None.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
So
that whole phase of like before the one world of Edim posting in his confessionals like I'm doing like me and Keaton are rebuilding bridges, and then I would click to Keaton's confessionals like I'm gonna burn his game to the ground and stuff. Like I found that whole thing so funny.
yeah,
Oh,
but that was tough. What do you guys? So I guess I want to open this to you guys because I'm talking too much. But what do you guys think of Milo? Because like I said, I feel like we're not giving him enough attention.
see, now I'm scared to talk about Milo because I don't want to curse him since that seems to be what we're doing on this show. But no, Milo's done fantastic, especially since his like after his slow start, I'd say. Like he
Hmm.
was kind of the second option for that first tribal, right?
Yeah, and I think that he has been like a second, like a backup option for like a lot of votes, but he keeps maneuvering.
Well, that's what it was for Alice and Pluto, right? And she was at
Yeah,
final tribal,
yeah.
and like that's kind of similar game at least that I've seen in Milo is like he's always out there as a possible vote, but he has connections. Like he's I think I think Jenny's number one is Adim, but for the longest time it was Milo, and now Milo's her number two. And he's also good with Red, who's someone on like the minority, so that's huge. Having like a tight minority connection. He's
Hmm.
like I don't know, he just seems like generally good with everyone, and I don't really see him in any danger until at least merge,
Yeah,
barring any crazy
yeah.
advantage plays.
And I really like
Yeah.
that little trio of him and Adrian and Niles, like all
Mhm.
protecting each other. What were you gonna
Yeah.
say, Tyler?
I was gonna say I agree. Like it's his game's just impressive to me because it's not that he just has connections with like his people. He doesn't just have connections with Adrian and Niles and Liz.
Mhm.
He also has connections with people that, I mean, for all intents and purposes, he's been working against. Like he has a decent relationship with Red still. He has, I believe it was Ryan's comment that I read where Ryan said that Milo was seemed like one of the only heroes that wanted to work with him. So, like, I mean, you're blindsiding people and you're putting in a ton of effort for you to stay, which is impressive in the first place, but also maintaining those relationships and not burning bridges
Yeah,
is it's like crazy, and it's a lot more than a lot of the other players are doing right now because a lot of the other
yeah,
players are just kind of burning some bridges, I guess is the best way to put it. And Milo's kind of just riding the wave, like
yeah.
he's
A
all
lot
go lucky.
There was a lot of hurt feelings from this past round, but I don't think anybody is mad at Milo right now, even
Hmm.
though he got his way. The two people that
Yeah,
went home are the two people that he wanted to go home, and yet no one is mad at him somehow.
Yeah, and especially like we're still in pre-jury, but the ability to work against people and have them like you post like once the jury starts is
Mm.
huge, especially like in All Stars when there are going to be a lot of hurt feelings and bitterness on jury, as I feel like is just natural with All Star seasons. If Milo does get to the end and everyone he's voted out doesn't have any problems with him, that's like that can literally win him the game, right? Just that in itself.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Um, But yeah, I think also something that I don't think we've touched on, and I feel like has to be mentioned that tribal is Adrian and Nathan, because that was kind of something
Mm.
I saw late last night, and I was totally taken aback by it, because I didn't even really realize that they were that close before this game started. Like I knew they played Neptune, I didn't realize they were kind of friends outside of that. And then
Mm.
also, yeah, I just I don't know where that's gonna go because that was kind of news to me was seeing Adrian's kind of rant. And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I was just like, whoa, whoa, where's all this coming from?
Yeah, so I saw his rant or his con this morning. And I didn't see anything after that. I didn't see Nathan's response to it or their communication at all.
They did
But
talk
I
about it,
do
and I
know.
think it's better. So
Okay. Oh, that's good. Because I was gonna say that, yeah, they are like best friends outside of the game. They've been really, really close for a while, and probably since Neptune. And I think it was just one of those things where like let's say Ryan and Keaton again. They're best friends. They've been wanting to play together for a while. Or like Red and Shadow. They're extremely close. They've been wanting to play together for a while. And then you meet up, and then immediately your friend tries to vote you out the first round. Like, I would be hurt too. So
yeah,
I get where Adrian was coming from, but I don't know how things went down from there. Um, and I also don't know the extent that Nathan was involved in pushing Adrian's name. Like, I'm sure that Nathan was saying, like, I don't want to do Adrian, but I don't know the details there.
Um, Nathan did write a con earlier. I believe I don't remember if it was the afternoon or morning, but he did mention that other people, Niles included, were putting in more effort with him personally than Adrian was, at least from Nathan's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
So they might have came in and maybe Adrian assumed that Nathan would be closer to him just off the bat, but Nathan feels like Adrian wasn't putting in enough effort, I guess, to um, make it
So
so he was
Nathan was,
super protective. Yeah,
right.
yeah, Nathan was just looking at it from like a this season perspective.
yeah,
Adrian was looking at it from a friendship perspective. That makes sense.
hmm yeah. Just a little.
Well,
There's a disconnect between the two a little bit there.
yeah, and I can say from personal experience, um, all stars generate a lot of hurt feelings between friends. Sometimes it makes you question if you're going to stay friends, but I do think that the true friends can make up after. So I hope they're okay.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Um, I'm trying to think of anything else, but
I
there's
have,
so much that happened last tribal that
I know there's so much. I have a few notes, although now I don't remember exactly what all my notes mean on my little post-it. Um, I wrote the word meta because, and I said this in Spec Lounge, I think we need
banned.
to ban the use of the word meta because everything is meta. They're all meta. Everyone is friends. Everyone knows each other. It's fine. Like, let's not accuse people of being meta because it's just a fact. And that's how All Stars work. And we
Yeah.
knew that, especially going in this season. But like I also think it's been interesting seeing how the meta plays out in different ways, such as Adrian and Nathan, where one of them expected it to mean that they were rock solid, and one of them was not looking at the beyond the game. Then we have Ryan and Keaton, who immediately linked up because of their friendship, and that's how the Cross Tribal Alliance started to form in the first place. Then we have May and Edim, who are literally married and like talking about the game when they're going to sleep at night. Like, um, but I think that everyone is approaching it in a different way, and I think that's really interesting. And we just need to not accuse anyone. That's all.
Yeah. I think it is just weird to talk about meta in All Stars because like if you want to say, oh well, we should target this person because they are friends with like who isn't I don't know. I just agree. I feel like talking about meta is so like or you can talk about meta like it's not like it's taboo to say, oh, Ryan and Keaton are best friends, but that
Mhm.
shouldn't be a reason to go after either of them kind of thing because then you can be like, oh well, Red and Shadow are friends, May and Edim are married. Like there's a lot of if you want to start targeting people for out of game connections, and you're like no one's left to not target.
Right. And I do think that sometimes people use it as an excuse where, like, so for instance, May and Ariel getting upset about Han throwing Yara under the bus for meta, right? Han had mentioned something about Yara and Milo playing the season, and there was some indication that she was using that as a reason to potentially target Yara. Which, by the way, I do think that was blown up. I don't think that Han was gunning for Yara in any way. I think that was blown slightly out of proportion. Um, but like them being upset about Han using meta was understandable, but I also think it was slightly them finding a reason
To get
to
yeah.
ping things on Han, you know? Like sometimes when you're building a case against someone, you need something to say about them. So you're like, "Oh, well they're being meta," or "Oh, they threw this person's name out," and things get blown out of proportion.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah. No meta is here to stay. We live in the metaverse now.
Cosmic
Yeah,
meta.
Did
I've
you guys
lived it.
have huh?
I've lived it. I've lived it outside of Cosmic in general or Cosmic, and it's
Yeah.
just gonna follow you wherever you go. Unfortunately, it's
Yeah, I was gonna bring up Soul and how like that got out of hand, and by that I mean people criticizing you guys in Soul for being meta got out of hand, and I still feel bad about that.
Like specs, you mean?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah,
Soul
I
was
was.
rough.
yeah,
Soul was a
yeah,
tough
it was
one, but I
fun.
mean,
I know.
it, it's whatever. It's like I mean, it's just gonna always be there. You just gotta learn how to deal with it and hope it doesn't try to take over, I guess. It's
Mhm.
always gonna be present. Don't let it take over and just your
Right.
entire train of thought. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing is sometimes it's even used against people in the sense that like Shadow, for instance. I keep saying that I don't think he belongs in the bottom because I really don't. But like he
Hmm.
was lumped in with Red and Ryan and Han, even though like he had his other connections, but people left him out because they're like, oh well, he's friends with Red, he's gonna tell. Um, which that brings up Ariel and Shadow.
That's what I was gonna say. That's the
Um,
last thing
Yeah.
because I feel like we
yeah,
haven't talked about that yet. But anyway, keep
yeah.
going.
Oh well,
Or
I
is that
was
what
gonna
are you saying?
Yeah, no, I was gonna open that up and say like my only defense for Ariel is that she was in class. She was literally in her like graduate level, like super intense class. So I somewhat get the not being able to DM as much, but also if she was DMing other people, she should have been able to DM her number one, right?
Yeah, I think that's the part that I guess confuses me personally because like I you can totally justify not telling Shadow. Like I get that. You can he's friends with Red, he's friends with Ryan, he's like he's played Neptune with him. Like I get all that. So like I get the justifications of why you wouldn't tell Shadow, but if you don't tell Shadow, then he I figure he's not your number one. You know what I mean? Like so I thought by not telling Shadow, that was Ariel kind of saying, okay, I'm moving forward in this game with different people. But then after Tribal, when she's like, I might have messed things up with Shadow, I still want him to be my ride or die. That's what confused me, because I was like, then why didn't you tell him? It would have been so much easier for him to be your ride or die. But I mean,
Sound
it's easier to say that from Spec Lounge. I'm sure in the moment it was very, and actually I don't know if she's answered this, but I wonder if she could go back, would she tell him? Like I wonder if she's kind of if she still stands by her decision or if she wishes she told him or something. But
Mm.
yeah, it was just I think it was just last minute panic. And I think if it, let's say it was Han and Keaton from the start, I think she tells Shadow. But I think because it was Han and Red for so long, that's what also contributed to not telling Shadow, at least right
Okay.
away. I don't know. I do want them to be good again though. Like if
I
they can
know.
make it to merge and link, like I loved that duo and I'm still rooting for both of them. So
yeah.
hopefully it's all good.
Mhm.
I just think it's going to be hard here on out, and understandably so, for Shadow to 100% trust Ariel again, which is
Yeah.
sad because I also love that duo. We had like a whole section about how much we loved that secret duo,
I'm
but
telling you, we're cursed. Milo's going next.
No.
no.
But yeah.
but but yeah, I think it's like I don't know. It's like if you trust Shadow to be your number one, and I don't think she had any real reason to distrust Shadow. I don't think Shadow had done anything thus far. He's kind of been telling her everything. They've laid out plans together for like future rounds and all that.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I've been in Ariel's situation before where it's like it's so hard to like tell somebody about that because they very easily could just go and let somebody else know, and then if they put the
Like
dots together,
like Edim telling Keaton.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then like it gets back to Ariel, and then everybody's all mad at Ariel, and
Exactly.
maybe the vote goes on to Shadow because Ariel leaked it to Shadow, just like what happened with Keaton. So I
Right.
mean, there is from Ariel's perspective, there is a lot to consider there as well. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's 100% out of the question for her to have not told him. I just think it's a tad bit confusing. I'd like to hear a little bit more from her about her reasoning
Yeah.
in general.
Yeah.
And I think later tonight we're gonna get uh, a post from Shadow about like the whole situation, I guess, with Ariel, and we'll
Mhm.
get to know his thoughts more on it because we haven't really seen that yet, other than from Ariel's a couple screenshots she sent of him being reasonably frustrated. Like I don't want to make it seem like he's being a pain. Like I think he's actually dealt with it very well, at least from what I've seen from Ariel's perspective. Like he's like I'm livid, but it's not at you. Like so
Mhm.
I need you to know. And I thought that was very I guess good of him to say and just make that clear.
I
But
also really want to know what Red was doing during all of this.
yeah, the
Because
I'm
with
still
that
processing that he
reveal
knew.
from
Like
Jenny, he knew pretty early on, I believe. Like that the day of, but he knew like hours before. So what was he doing? Who was he talking to? Why didn't he talk to Shadow and Han and Ryan? Like what? I'm very confused about Red's part in all of this. So I would
yeah,
love to know more about that.
yeah. There's so much that I don't think we'll ever know about this tribal, but I
Yeah,
mean, we can hope.
I know.
Yeah, I cannot get over the fact that he knew. So,
I
or
know.
he at least knew about Han or Han and
Yeah.
maybe didn't know that it was on himself, but it
He at
seems,
least suspected that it was on himself.
yeah.
And apparently it was, by the way, it was apparently Niles trying really hard to keep it on red. Like he kept trying to make sure that it stayed on red.
Does he know
I don't
that?
I don't know.
Because if Jenny is telling him stuff, then, or I don't think Niles is on his tribe now anyway, but yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Jenny was actually very open with Red and keeping him in the loop, which is interesting.
So yeah.
Um, do you guys think that Ryan can recover?
I guess we can start to. I don't think we've talked much about swap tribe dynamics. I know Emily, you don't have too long, so
Yeah,
maybe me and
I
Tyler
don't
can
have to.
talk about that later.
Yeah, but
But
I'm curious to know what you guys think about that.
specifically
It would help
Ryan,
you.
I've said this in
Um,
Spec Lounge, it's gonna take a miracle for him to survive a tribal on this tribe. I can't see it. I don't know what he does. Like obviously he
unless
has Shadow and Red. Those three are solid, but then there's a four on the other side. Who do you flip? Like
unless unless they win out. I mean, which that might have to be the thing. They might have to comp beast Ryan might have to go hard and just like help the tribe win to
Yeah, and hope
emerge.
that May doesn't decide to throw, which I think is totally another possibility because she has her idol and she has all these people on the other tribe who she wants to keep safe. So,
Mhm.
like, if Ryan makes merge, he's got to win the whole season at that point. Like that, he's unkillable.
Yeah, I think they're one chance, and maybe I'm like um over exaggerating their relationship from what Ryan said. Maybe they flip Milo. I think Milo would be the only one that would even consider flipping, probably, right? Because there's no way Adrian's flipping, I don't think.
Mhm.
And Gabe and May are relatively close, aren't they?
Very, yeah, no, Gabe is very loyal to May, I believe. Like, there's no
Yeah.
way Gabe flips. I want to say no way Adrian flips, and I also want to say no way Milo flips. But I agree
Yeah.
that he's the most likely, if anyone.
Or they find an advantage in the Safari, maybe. That. Those are the only two outs I really see for Ryan, and both seem like pretty big
Yeah.
long shots at
And
this
I think
point. If
it's
I'm being
pretty
honest.
clear if nothing happens and it's 4 versus 3, he goes first. Like, I don't see a
Mhm.
world in which I think Red, Toby was kind of bringing this up in Spec Lounge. Red kind of seems to be in the same spot he was in Luna, of like he got
Mhm.
swapped with his two closest male allies, and it seems like they're doomed to get voted out before he does.
Oh my
Which
god.
maybe that means Red wins this season. You never know,
Well,
but
and we saw history repeat itself twice over with Dante and Keaton, which
yeah.
I'm so mad about. That we were like, hey guys, let's bring back two players from Seoul who got fucked over, and then they fuck them over again.
Oh man, this season was destined to be like horrible pre-merge, like the worst pre-merge ever. But maybe
Well, you
that
know
means
what?
we'll have a great merge.
The theme is the apocalypse, so maybe we brought this upon ourselves. But yeah, with that, unless you guys have any last questions for me, I think I've said my piece.
All right.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Thanks for joining us. It was an awesome discussion. Thanks for giving us so much insight into that vote. I don't think I would have been able to give near that much, just from what I knew. So thanks for your insight and everything.
thank you for having me and doing this
For
awesome
sure.
show.
Yeah, I think I don't think the actually I have no idea what I'm gonna edit this because it's gonna be a mashup of like three different clips. But
Yeah.
this might be the end of the episode. It might not be the end of the episode. We'll see in about 20 seconds when this segment ends. But yeah, actually, no, I'll make it the end. I'll make it end with tribal so that I can
That
do
makes
a
sense.
little outro here and then not have to worry about it later. So
Or did
yeah,
you,
pardon?
were you guys going to talk about the swap tribes or leave off on that?
Actually, yeah, that's probably a better
Um,
place to end on because that's more recent. Good thinking. See, this is why
yeah.
we get you on instead of letting me do it.
All right.
Okay. Well, yeah, thank you once again, Emily, for joining us, and I guess Cosmic as a whole, since you're our first co-founder to come on the talk show.
We got to get Troy on here too.
We do,
Yep.
yeah.
Mhm.
Both for the maybe for the final episode, we'll have to get both of you at once to
Ah,
to wrap up this season.
okay. That'll probably be me and Troy butting heads the whole time. That's our secret. I don't know if you know this. Troy and I love each other to death, but that's part of the reason why Cosmic works is the whole thing is behind the scenes, me and Troy doing until we reach a compromise and it works out.
Hey, yeah, it's worked this far. It's worked for 10 seasons. Why not one more?
Mhm.
All right. Good night, guys.
Yeah,
All right.
see you.
Bye,
Bye.
Emily.
And we are back after talking with Emily. Yeah, we're back to just kind of, I guess, rewind a little bit since we missed out on episode 4. So yeah, I guess we're just gonna talk a bit about that, and then we'll move into, I guess, the future with these new swapped tribes. So I guess Tyler, do you want to start us off with, I don't know, I guess a few interesting things that happened at the episode 4 tribal? I guess
Yeah.
before you start, actually, full disclosure, both of us were very busy this episode, So if we say anything wrong, I wouldn't be surprised. So make sure you can correct us if we're spreading misinformation.
It's also a little bit tipsy at this point, so keep that in mind as well. Don't hate too much. But yeah, I know we focused a lot on the Alice Fallout last episode and kind of like going into talking with Emily. Um, so I feel like most of what we haven't covered is kind of just the whole Dante boot in general, which unfortunately kind of from the get-go unfortunately seemed kind of inevitable from Dante's point of view. He worked really, really hard to stay, and I believe it was episode 2, and put on a show, made several trio alliances, kind of saved himself to an extent, but it just kind of caught up with him here, unfortunately. And I mean, I don't know how much he could have done this episode to really save himself. It was kind of just, it seemed like it was almost what May, Ariel, and Shadow wanted. So it just, they were at that point the power trio of the tribe. And it kind of happened. And there was some pushback, it seemed like, from a Han, from Ryan, especially, which, as Emily kind of pointed out, was a little bit more overblown. It seems like than it actually was, but it looked like they were trying to get votes potentially on Yara. Um, I did know that Han had Yara at the bottom of her trust ranking, so that might have something to do with it. But it was kind of almost a little bit short-lived, I guess, just because it didn't really gain any traction. It feels like, besides maybe with Ryan or a Nathan, and it just kind of led to a Dante boot, is what it seems like. What are your thoughts on kind of what we've heard about it, Chadley?
Yeah, I think Han and Ryan wanting to save Dante wasn't overblown. Like I think they did make it clear they didn't want to vote him out. I think it was the fact
Yeah.
that like Han or Han, I still don't know how to pronounce it. I'm gonna say Han, I think, for the rest of this video, but I might flip back and forth like I have in this entire series. But I think it was like she did definitely want to save Dante and like get him to the merge. I think she did specifically
Yeah.
mention that, but I think it was the fact that she was targeting Yara, which is what got overblown and taken out of context and stuff. Like I think she just mentioned, "Hey, Yara's in a game with Milo," which like I don't even think she's like, "Oh, we should get her for that." She just said it, and Ariel kind of took it and said, "Oh, like blah blah blah." And then the other thing was, Han just said Yara is like Yara's on the bottom of her trust ranking. She's a sneaky player, which like I mean she is. I think everyone knows Yara's a sneaky player. So I don't think Han really did anything specifically to be like, oh, we need to get Yara now. But it got taken that way, and as we saw with this most recent episode, that's what kind of put her in a bad spot coming here. Because for whatever reason, the perception was Han is gunning for Yara, which again is overblown, but that's what can happen, I guess. I don't know.
And I feel like we've seen kind of a few of these misconceptions now kind of like blow
Yeah.
up a little bit in this season, especially like with Alice. I know there was a lot of miscommunication that kind of led to her downfall a little bit. Um, this situation with Han, where she necessarily wasn't full targeting Yara, but it made it seem like she was. Um, just little things like that where, and I feel like in a season of this caliber, maybe in a season where like you don't have this caliber of player, it doesn't really affect you that much. But when you have this many good players that are always looking for little things to try to get an edge on somebody, I feel like it's just magnified tenfold. To
Exactly.
where, yeah, to where like, I mean, how else are you gonna get Han out? She's an amazing player. So like I mean, if you're somebody, and Han was in a great position before this, so it's unfortunate, but like I don't know, it's just one of those things where they took advantage of it and they got her the next cycle. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much all I got on Han Yara aspect of it. I know they didn't trust each other before, but as Emily said, it was definitely a little bit more overblown than what it actually was.
Well, I think before that whole thing, Yara did trust Han at least a little bit, which
Oh,
is
okay.
why it became so like, oh, Han's gunning for me, like this is a betrayal kind of. I could be wrong. I could be making that up. But I think what it was Yara at least had Han up there, if not like at the very top. I think Han was up there, but then Yara was on the very bottom for Han, which is why there was that discrepancy, I guess. And when it got out that Han was gunning for Yara, Yara's like, "What? Well, I've tried my hardest to work with you. Why is this happening?" And then it snowballed from there, kind of thing. I think. Again, I'm like, I could be
Yeah,
wrong.
that
I think that's kind of how it went down.
yeah. From the information we have been given, that sounds right. I think. I mean, I'm on kind of the same board with that. Um, but has this kind of led to Yara kind of taking Han's place a little bit? I know she was always pretty close with Ariel. Ariel had her pretty high up from the beginning, but I feel like Han kind of snuck in there maybe a little bit towards like the end of maybe the third cycle, but maybe Yara kind of took her place up there, and Yara's kind of
Oh, you
like
mean like
that second or third to like May,
an
Ariel.
air? Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree. I think even if they don't have a specific trio alliance, I do think if, well, I say if, it's probably more likely when all three of them link up at merge. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens because I think all three of them trust each other pretty highly. I
Yeah,
could be wrong. I think Ariel and Yara, at least on their current, which I guess we'll talk later about the current tribes, I think they're number ones within their tribe. Like I think Ariel's number one and two would still be Shadow and May, but for her tribe now it's Yara. I think I saw her post that at least.
and it's interesting now because I feel like after May and Ariel kind of got called out a little bit, Yara's kind of in one of the best spots just in the game in general. Like she's in the power group, nobody's really targeting her. It's just it feels like a classic Yara game, and it's just insane that she can pull this off and like a cast of this caliber and stuff, and
Yeah,
just nobody clocks her. Nobody. I mean, Han clocked her a little bit. Han was
and she got sent
kind of
home.
like not trusting her. Yeah, exactly. And then she gets sent home. So it's like, what can Yara even really like? What does she have to do at this point? Like, she's in a great spot. She doesn't really have to do anything. She can just kind of chill for a little bit until the minority people get picked
Yeah,
off, and then she's golden with the top of the villains
yeah.
tribe still.
Although we did say that about Shadow last episode,
We did.
so maybe we should wait and see what happens to Yara. But I do think you're right. And realistically, if this one world cycle doesn't happen, I think Shadow also just has an easy route to merge. But then because of that whole
Yeah,
one world thing, he's gonna have a tougher time of it. But I mean, he still looks in pretty good shape. But yeah, I guess we can talk about that a bit later. Um,
yeah.
I guess
Yara,
before. Oh, go ahead.
Yara, if you do go in the next couple, just know that we're sorry and we didn't do it intentionally. I promise.
Oh
We've
man.
cursed so many people
We
in
need
the
to. I'm
first
gonna
few
go through
episodes.
at the end of the season and just like make a counter of like I'll make a compilation of every time we cursed somebody because it's happened a good few times now.
We're up to 3 or 4 at least right now.
Yeah, I
It's
I know for
it's
sure
starting to be
we cursed
worrying. Like,
Andrew because
yeah,
Austin I think said Andrew um it like might be in trouble of a really early boot and I said yeah, but a season of this, they're all great players. He could go to the end, and then he was first boot, so I feel partially responsible for that. And then very next boot is West, who I don't think we cursed
what?
West. I think our hands are clean. But one after that, Alice, we totally cursed Alice. She was
I'll
our
take full
you'll
responsibility for that one. I brought her up, and I regret it.
yeah, she was I think our first one to watch, wasn't she?
Yep. Hmm.
So then, yeah, and in that same conversation, we kind of cursed Red by saying he was in a fantastic spot in his tribe, and he gets blindsided with the Atlas vote. So what?
And then
That's three curses. Um, four is that Shadow maybe?
yep,
Shadow's the fourth curse.
and Nathan
Uh,
last episode too, because we
Nathan
had dedicated the
and
whole show to
yeah,
Nathan.
okay. So I think we're up to five, but I might have to double check. So yeah, well let's
Oh,
bring it on. One Unearth curse. We'll see who we curse this episode. But yeah. I guess before we move, because or unless do you have anything specific to say about the tribal of episode four?
not really. I think the only other thing of note is Dante and Gabe both kind of apparently went to each other, and people like Dante was being told Gabe, and Gabe was being told Dante,
Yeah.
and people. I don't know if that's really a lasting impact on Gabe because especially during the one world cycle, it seemed to go right back to working with May Ariel. He was in that big majority group. So I don't think that really has any lasting impact. I don't think they really were targeting him. I don't know if Dante threw out his name first, maybe, but that could be something to note for the future. Like maybe Gabe's on edge a little bit from that. I would be on edge a little bit from that,
I
I
would
think.
too, but
Just
I think he also realized that even though he was, I guess, worst case scenario given as the decoy, like so it could have if it was Dante who brought up Gabe and everyone else was just like, okay, sure, then that's honestly not that much to worry about. But
yeah,
if it was people saying Dante, right, Gabe, we're voting Gabe, then that would be cause for concern. But I think he did know slash realize that Han and Ryan were coming out of that tribal worse than he was, so he knew even though his position still wasn't great, it still wasn't at the bottom. And I mean that's all you really need to do is make sure you're not the next one going home kind of thing.
absolutely, yeah, yeah. I don't think it's gonna have very lasting impact. So,
Yeah,
but there's something to note
you never
potentially
know.
for the
Yeah,
future. Yeah.
in a season where any little thing can get you voted out, it could have an impact. But I guess before we move on to our newest swap and new tribes, you played with Dante both seasons. Did you
Yeah.
meet him in Seoul? I know nothing about that season.
So Soul started with a male-female divide, so we were on initial tribes together.
Oh,
Um, but we didn't necessarily, we weren't super close on the original tribes. We kind of, we were probably midway to higher mid on each other's trust rankings, but I mean, our real connection came from Mars. We were basically
okay.
like super close. Like Dante's an awesome player. Dante's a really cool guy. Um, very good social player, very good strategic player. I mean, he was always such a good guy to me, and like my first season, and kind of took me under his wing a little bit with just navigating Mars in general. So I'm just as an ode to Dante, I just want to say thank you. You're one of my first allies and orgs in general, and I thank you for that. I mean, that's awesome. You're an absolute legend. Regardless, I know you were kind of beat up about placement and not doing well, but like, I mean, just look at the people in the season. You're an absolute legend. You're a great player. You're an awesome guy. Um, you should be proud of yourself.
For sure. Like, I didn't know anything really about Dante before this, and I think I said this in the cast assessment. Just reading pregame confessionals, I was already rooting for Dante to do well, just because I really loved reading his pregame. Even if he did say that I wasn't as good as Danny, but you know it's okay. We can move past that, I'm sure. But yeah, and he's specifically expressed interest for coming on this show. So hopefully we can get that set up. And yeah, you guys will have to keep your eyes out for Dante coming to a YouTube video near you sometime soon.
Stay tuned for a few pre-mergers. I think might have something getting in the works for later and down the line. Just we'll keep you posted.
Yeah. So yeah. with that, I guess we can move into the most recent event, I guess, in our crazy season, which is the schoolyard captains or schoolyard pick captains swap, I think is how you would say it.
Yeah,
With Ryan and Ariel as the two captains, and I think the once like they were captains, people could kind of see how the tribes were gonna get split. I don't think there was any crazy shocking picks other than maybe Yara using Tatsu to pick Jenny. That was that was pretty good.
yeah. I think the only one I'm interested in, and I think could maybe have some sort of repercussion to it, is I think everybody kind of expected Adim to
Oh, right.
pick Nathan with his initial
Oh,
pick, which
sorry, keep going, keep going. I thought you were gonna say May.
I mean May as well. I think it's just some complete wild card. Who did he end up choosing? He chose Yara, correct? I think.
Yes, yes, he did. I think Ariel picked him expecting him to pick May, and then he didn't. And then yeah, I guess also Nathan, I think it was Adrian who pointed out like what is Edim doing? Why didn't he pick Nathan?
Yeah, I think Niles was expecting him to pick
Oh,
Nathan as
Niles?
well. And I don't think it's going to have huge repercussions, but
No,
he's
'cause
definitely prioritizing himself over like picking Nathan and making sure that other side didn't have that four and just putting it on someone else. Which, I mean, he got a lot of heat from the one world cycle. So, I mean, that stuff adds up over time. I don't know how much of an impact it's going to have overall because I mean, he's in seemingly a great spot on his tribe currently. So I think a lot would probably have to go wrong for him to be in trouble on that tribe, even after Nathan is potentially the first boot. But I think it's interesting for sure that he didn't pick Nathan for one and then May the other because I mean,
yeah, that's true. And I mean, he does
because
still have his idol, which is a ticking time bomb as we've learned. So he doesn't have that long to play it anyway. So I mean,
yeah,
if he knows he's not getting votes, I wonder if he'll try and make a play with it or just play it on himself to avoid the explosion, as Troy kind of warned him about.
can we hypothesize like what does an explosion mean? Like, what do we think that could be? Like votes on him, maybe,
I
or
think it could be that. It could be a few votes on him. I think it could be he loses his vote at the next tribal or something along those
ooh,
lines.
yeah,
Um, yeah, other or maybe it could be Safari related, but I figure by the time the idol would explode, I don't think losing a Safari run is that big of a deal because I think I guess a general consensus is the Safari's been picked clean other than whatever might get added at merge. So I don't think it'll be losing a Safari run or anything like a Safari disadvantage. I think it will be something vote related, whether that's votes on him or vote like he loses his vote. But also more likely than not, we'll never find out because I doubt he wants to find out.
that's true. Yeah, I think even if he just plays it on himself when he knows he's not going home, like I feel like as long as he's honest with people before he does it and just doesn't completely blindside people with, oh yeah, I'm playing an idol. I I don't see how that could really hurt him that
Well, I think
much.
he's actually told his tribe he's playing the idol at their next tribal, or at
Oh
least
yeah,
at
so
least he told someone. I don't. I think I saw that somewhere at least. But yeah,
yeah,
whether that's true
so
or not, I mean we'll see.
yeah,
But
he
yeah,
could be making a ploy to get another cycle in, but yeah, I mean, I feel like as long as he's because this is something I don't think you really want to lie about unless you actually think you're in a really bad position.
and I don't think
Um,
he is.
no, I think Nathan is. Unfortunately, it seems like Nathan is the consensus boot probably if they did go to tribal. Being in a 6-1 from the one world cycle is not an easy spot to be in. He's
Yeah,
gonna have to convince a lot of people to not go for him.
I think he does have a chance. I would say a lot more than I guess Ryan on the other tribe, who I guess we'll talk about
Yeah,
just a little bit. But Nathan I think Niles has already expressed sincere interest in working with Nathan. I'm trying to think. I think Ariel has said she's open to it, but not gonna force it or something like that. Um, and yeah, I don't know who it would flip on. Like, it could be a Deem, but I really don't think so. I guess, I mean,
I
yeah, we'll
feel
see. I think it is
yeah.
Niles and Ariel though that have expressed concerns over Edim, which is what makes me think like, oh, well, if it's Ariel and Niles who want to work with Nathan, maybe it's they want to use him to take out Edim. I could be
Is
wrong.
Liz on that side as well?
Liz is on that tribe, so that would be another one, I think. Or wait, I think I might have been mixing up Liz with Ariel. I think it might have been Liz who expressed discomfort with Edim and
Oh, okay.
openness to working with Nathan, or both. I don't remember.
So yeah, because I feel like Jenny and Dean are still going to be the pair
Yeah,
that everybody knows, probably knows they are, kind of, maybe, sort of.
I think everyone knows
But
that they were in Pluto. Even like I think people knew they'd be a pair coming into this season.
yeah, so I feel like Niles especially. I mean, he's a dynamic player. He's always thinking. So I mean, if he thinks Adim could be an issue to him long term, he's not going to let him get through this cycle or get through a couple of cycles
Yeah,
if they do go to tribal. So
I
I mean,
think
it's a possibility.
yeah, I think actually Nathan would benefit from, which I think is an unpopular opinion from what I've seen in Spec Launch, but I think Nathan would benefit more from going to a tribal earlier rather than later. Like I think if he goes to, let's say, like a final 12 tribal when they're assuming it's right before merge, I think he's more likely to get voted rather than if they go right now at final 14 and someone like Niles might say, "Hey, I need Nathan as the boot before me. So while he's here, let me try and get someone else so I still have, you know what I mean?" So I think Nathan actually would benefit from a bit of an earlier tribal. Could be wrong. I guess we'll see.
And honestly, them going to tribal early, if Nathan does end up getting saved, that could be a plus for the other side too. Because if
Mhm.
the four majority over there sees, oh yeah, they voted a Dean, they didn't vote Nathan. Maybe that changes their mindset on how they want to play it as well.
They'll know they
And
need some new connections because obviously things have changed over there, kind of thing.
yep,
So yeah, I'd love.
yep,
I mean, obviously, everyone in the game is you can't really root against anyone, but also just as a perennial underdog fan, I'm definitely rooting for the Nathan, Red, Ryan, Shadow camp. Just I'd like to see them pull something off. I don't want to see them just get picked off until merge kind of thing. So hoping Nathan can do some great things.
absolutely. Because I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat where I mean, we want to see excitement happen.
Yeah,
We're
exactly.
we're in the entertainment business now. We want to see something cool happen so we can have some
Yeah.
entertainment. But yeah, kind of going off that, if that other tribe goes to tribal, I don't see a way Ryan can get out of that. He's in
Yeah.
that trio in general, but especially Ryan, kind of having that not burnt relationship, I guess. Well, kind of a burnt relationship with May.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think you can call it burnt.
Yeah, it's pretty burnt at this point, but I don't see a way that any of Adrian, May, Milo, or who's the fourth one?
Gabe.
Gabe. I don't see any way they flip to Ryan after leaving him out last time. Like the only person maybe I see is Milo,
I
but I
I think their
even
best
still,
chance is flipping Milo on Adrian, cause there was that I guess uh I think there has been a little bit of frustration between those two, but at the same time, don't they have an alliance with Niles? And like that's the
yeah,
three, so I really don't know if that would be possible. I don't think they'd be able to flip Milo on Gabe or May, but I mean you never know. They're all good players, so and maybe Milo like he does have those connections with Red. I think Milo's pretty good with Red and Shadow. I could be wrong. I don't fully remember. There's so much happening. I'm like scrambled. But yeah,
I feel like
I think
yeah,
Milo basically if they go to tribal and they don't flip Milo, Ryan is dead in the water because I think he
yeah,
has been writing comps about Adrian, May, and Gabe aren't really giving him the time of day to even pitch his case, kind of thing. So I
Mm.
think he kind of knows he's dead to rights in regards to those three, but yeah, they're just gonna really have to work on Milo, and if not, I mean, I don't know. I hope I'm jinxing it again, but I just really don't see any way for Ryan to get out of that.
Yeah, I'm just curious to see if either tribe tries to throw this immunity challenge. I don't think I've seen anybody say it, but I mean, I wouldn't be shocked to
I think
see
someone said it
May.
actually.
Really? Okay.
I could be
I
wrong. Yeah, but
like I wouldn't be shocked if like May wanted to throw this to get rid of Ryan, honestly. Like it seems like a pretty clear cut boot, and she and Ryan have not really had a connection at all this game. May's always kind of had Ryan at the bottom of her trust rankings. Had trouble getting him out to this point, so maybe she takes the shot now while she can.
yeah, I think we might see potential in challenge throwing a bit closer to a merge. And especially with May having one idol now instead of the two she thought she had, I think it's less likely she'll throw at least this early because
Yeah.
two idols is definitely and especially two idols, both of them being more powerful, like you have to play them kind of sooner rather than later. So I think she's less likely to throw early now because she only has one idol. But I mean, we could see it. I'm just trying to think. I Someone did mention potentially throwing a challenge. Um, I don't remember who it was, but it wasn't on that tribe. It was on the Ravagers 2.0. And
Interesting.
I think it was a they'd throw if like I don't remember. I just remember seeing someone on Ravagers mention challenge throwing, and I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that from this tribe. I thought it was going to be the other one.
Yeah, I would expect that too, because once they
I could
lose,
try and pull it up actually. Actually, oh, I can't really do that.
yeah, because once they lose Nathan, like I don't know what happens over there. That's a whole mess. And if I were them, I wouldn't want to try to get to that situation. I'd be trying as pretty much as hard as I can for every immunity that I can, because once you lose
Yeah,
your one person buffer, I, who knows what happens.
I think that's what it was though. Was like if they were winning out, then throwing to get rid of Nathan. I think
Gotcha.
I could be misremembering, but I think that it was something along the lines of that. Like if they got to the round before merge and they had kind of kept Nathan on the outs and he's still just sticking around, then they might throw. I don't know though, because like why would Nathan be dangerous? Assuming the other tribe has gone to tribal three times and Shadow Ren or Ryan are all voted, like why? I don't know. At that point, I don't think it's worth throwing to get Nathan out if you voted out his only three allies currently in the game. But
Yeah, at that point, it's just he's the easy merge vote
yeah,
because he has no one, and yeah, I mean, and it's they're sticking to those same one world tribal lines at that point. So
hopefully we don't
yeah,
get to that point though. That would be boring.
that would be
Which I
very
mean,
boring. We're
good
a little
game.
bit of excitement.
Yeah, good gameplay on their behalf, but don't do it. Make the fun choices, not the smart ones.
Absolutely, we you just need one or two people, and they can shake things up a little bit. So
Exactly, yeah.
yeah,
Um,
but,
I
but yeah,
don't.
do you have anything else?
I was gonna say I don't really think I have anything more to add other than I'm sure. Oh, I guess we can. I tell people now instead of it being a surprise, we're busy. Now we're telling you there won't be a What on Earth episode for next episode, but once again we'll have two combined, filmed hopefully this Sunday night and released if I can not get lazy on Monday. But yeah, we'll see. But yeah, so hopefully we'll do a recap of episodes. What are we on now? Six? Episodes 6 and 7 coming out Monday
Yes.
night. And yeah, we'll see how much drama there is. I think it'll be although I feel like it's pretty dangerous to count on this. I feel like it'll be a little toned down compared to the last two cycles of or I guess not last two cycles, but I'm more thinking Alice cycle and Han slash Keaton cycle. Oh, we never did I guess farewells for Keaton and Han. That can be our last thing we do.
Yep.
Cause yeah, we've done that for everyone so far. So I guess who is technically 16th? I think it's Han, right? So do we want to start with
Yes.
her? Sorry about that. We had a bit of technical difficulties, but we are back. And yeah, our one last thing to do is I guess give our tribute slash say our farewells to both Keaton and Han, who sadly left us in the one world craziness chaos windstorm, I guess. I don't know if you can even call that tribal, but yeah, starting with Han as she, I guess, was technically 16th place. Although, how did they even determine that? Was it just Han got voted technically, but the first vote?
Yeah, yeah, I believe
Okay,
so.
but yeah, I think I think Han, as she talked about a bit post getting voted out, I think her reputation or what's the word, preceded her a bit.
Mhm.
Um, she spoke a lot about being known as like the VC queen, except now that means when she doesn't VC people, they immediately assume, oh, well, Han doesn't want to work with me kind of thing, which I mean, it does suck, but uh, it's like we were talking about, just any little thing can really just screw you over in these All-Star games when everyone's a fantastic player and they're just looking for anything to target someone with. But yeah, no, I've only had very limited conversations with Han, but it's very easy to tell why she is such a great player and does have such a good social game since um yeah, just she's very nice to talk to, and a very worthy winner of Neptune. I guess, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I've played with Han once before,
Oh yeah.
and we were relatively close during the season. But yeah, she's just a great person. She'll always listen to whatever you have to say, whether it's game related or not. I found that out during the season, and she's just a wonderful person to talk to, just in general. And on top of that, just being a great player, yeah, she's just awesome. She's a complete legend. She's like Cosmic's lucky to have her as a winner. And yeah, just I mean, even regardless of the placement, like we've said with everybody so far, this cast is ridiculous. Um, you always have a place in cosmic history. You're one of the best to do it still, and yeah, that's pretty much all I got. You're awesome, Juan.
Yeah, and also we have Keaton who went home, I guess yesterday. I don't know how to start these things, but yeah, Keaton was someone I was as well as Han. I was really excited to see play because I had never seen Keaton play before this, but I have spoken to him a lot and interacted with him a lot in Cosmic Hub, and he's just what a amazing guy. Like, he's just so positive and so kind to, well, kind to everybody except who he's like really close with. To them, he's really mean, but I mean that's just part of being friends, isn't it? Like, if you can't be mean to your friends, are you really friends? But yeah, I think, and especially just the way I feel like this has to be brought up because everyone's gone out well, I'd say, especially for how much this means to everybody. But I think the way in which Keaton went out was really nice to see, I guess, especially when emotions are running high and everyone's mad about, or not mad, but upset, I guess, about that tribal, and he's just leaving hearts in everyone's confessionals and just being Keaton, and just yeah, he took it like an absolute champ considering he got kind of the vote switched on him last minute, which can be like, I don't think anyone would have blamed him if he was mad and upset at people, and but he wasn't, and it's just such a testament to his character that I don't know, he took it like a champ.
Yeah, and I think one thing I want to bring up specifically about Keaton and his exit, and just his spot on this season in general. I know when the cast was revealed in general, so many people were surprised that Keaton was a hero and not a villain.
Hmm.
And kind of like with what you said there, Shadley, and just his time in the game in general, I think Keaton really did prove that he is a hero and definitely played very heroically this season.
Oh yeah.
Maybe changed a lot of people's opinions just on Keaton as a player in general. He was loyal. He did what his tribe needed him to do, and I mean, just how he went out in general. That's not how a villain goes out most of
Yeah.
the time.
I still stand by the fact that if you switch me and Keaton's places, I delete that study doc, burn it. Like I had so much respect for Keaton still. I guess it helped that he knew it was himself on the line if they lost that, but man, like when he was like, "Should I delete the doc?" Part of me wanted to react with, "Yes, like do it." But I didn't want to interfere and like possibly make him throw his Fondly game. But I'm like, that is why Keaton is a nicer person than I will ever be.
But yeah, Keaton, you're a hero.
Hmm.
You're a cosmic legend. Everything about you're a good player. Just complete package. So
Oh yeah.
we'll miss having you on the season. We'll miss Ben Hahn on the season. Um, Tough to lose both of you, but in this caliber, like we'll say every
It's
single
gonna suck
time,
every
it's
time.
gonna suck every time. So, but we love both of you. We hope you guys aren't too down on yourselves because you're great players still.
Oh yeah. And with that, I guess that about does it for us for this kind of episode 4/5 hybrid with our special guest appearance from Emily for the first section at least. Um, yeah, do you want to close us out, Tyler?
Yeah, I kind of say it every time, but I don't think we've gotten really anything. If you guys have
That's true.
anything at all
Yeah, come
that
on, criticize us. Tell us what we're
criticize,
doing
we
wrong.
want criticism. Like positively, of course. Don't be too mean because hurt our feelings a little bit. But if you have anything that we could do to help you, just let us know. It's no big deal. We want to make this a better show for the people that are watching, people that are taking the time out of their day to watch us. Um, but yeah, thanks again to Emily for coming on. It was fun to have a member of Starkman and one of the co-hosts on the season. We hope to get her on again, or maybe even hope to get Troy on if he is down at some point. Troy will be coming for you. But um, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you all for watching, and we will see you hopefully Sunday night, Monday during the day, sometime then.
Something like that, yeah.
Yep. All right. Bye, everyone.
See ya.